Okay, I'm back again, and we're going to talk a little bit about local color today. But before I do that, again, I want to comment on your essays. There was a terrific amount of interplay among you this week. It was terrific. We all learn so much when you take the time to respond not only to other people's essays, but to other people's comments, because you may not have the same thoughts that somebody else does in their comments. And so when you respond to their comments, especially if your thoughts are different, then you get you get some discussion going, and we all learn through discussion. That doesn't mean you have to agree or disagree with them, but it is kind of neat that you are really increasing the amount of discussion that's going on. And my feeling is the more interested somebody is in what's going on, the more they will get involved in the different discussions, because the more that they want to grow and learn and through all of this, okay? Again, I told you in the beginning that one of my primary goals is for you to come to enjoy literature more. I think through discussing what you find in literature and what the themes are and what elements you see appearing in different stories and such, it is enhancing your ability to discuss these things. And so I think this just adds more and more to your appreciation of literature. So keep it up, because you're doing a very good job with that. And in general, your essays are terrific. It's to me, it's fascinating that there are such significant differences of opinion on your essays as well. That makes it even more fun for me, and of course, it increases the discussion that goes on, which, as I just said, I think is a very, very valuable part of this all. So you guys are doing a great job. Keep it up, okay? And I appreciate the fact that more of you tried to get your things in on time. And if you couldn't get them in on time, you sent me an email telling me what was going on, that you weren't able to. Hey, life intervenes sometimes, and that's okay. All right? Okay, so this week we're talking about the idea of local color writing. This is not a terribly difficult concept. Oh, let me get a little hand gesture in here, okay? Local color writing is writing, storytelling, or it could even be nonfiction, but it zeroes in on a particular place and a particular time period. Does all writing, yes, but in local color writing, the things that are developed are things that could have only happened in that area and during that era, during that time period, okay? So local color writing really delves into the local color, the local life of a particular area. I have to believe that somebody could do a terrific job writing local color stories about the general Buffalo area population's adoration of the Buffalo Bills and their incredible attention to the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo, being a pretty small town, is close to being different from almost every place else in the way that they treat the Bills. My wife has never been a sports fan, and yet she always asks about the Bills. She used to even watch some of the Bills games with her mother, especially as her mother got older, as a way of keeping her mother company. And then she never came home and complained about it, So a local color would be really the incredible dedication of people in Buffalo to the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are kind of a big part of what Buffalo is all about, okay? So local color means things that are specific to a particular area and a particular time period. So one of the stories we're going to be reading this week has to do with the Old West. Now, we've all seen television shows, we've all seen movies that have to do with the cowboys. And this whole cowboy era was in a rather short period of time in the late 1800s out in the pretty much unsettled, lawless western part of this country. Not as far as the West Coast, of course. California was, along the coast was pretty settled. Cities were growing like crazy, all that kind of thing. But we're talking about probably the area between the Mississippi and California, and there were all sorts of things that went on there. There was a way of life that was so different. We refer to it as the Old West. So a story that is about that kind of thing, about the Old West, is considered a local color story. It is going with the beliefs, the ways of life, the theories, the, what's the word I want? Not superstitions, but I don't know, the kinds of things that help the myth about the Old West perpetuate. If you've seen Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, you see a lot of the Old West kinds of things where they hold up a train, and you probably have seen some movies somewhere along the line where there are wagon trains being attacked by Indians. That's all part of the myth, the theory, the overall idea of the Old West. So stories about that are local color writing, okay? And you'll read one of those today. Let me tip you off a little bit. Part of what happens in that story is a change also from the Old West that we know to a newer West. And maybe that's part of the reason that times were changing, why the sheriff went out and got a wife. Because when you think about what a sheriff had to do in an Old West town, it was almost irresponsible to get married. But maybe the West was changing at the time the story was set, and so maybe that's what the author is part of what the author is trying to symbolize. But anyway, you'll see local color going on there. The other story is really a pretty harsh story, interesting, fascinating, captivating, of how a person really has a goal and how he is rewarded for it, but it is set in the South during very racist times, okay? And our main character is an African American. A number of the characters are African American, but not all of them. And so you'll see the racism that was directed at those African Americans. I said this in the assignment, I said this in the lesson, but I'll say this to you now also. Don't judge the racism that's at. I'm not saying approve of it because it's never been right, but don't look at it from the world of the 21st century. Try to put yourself back in a different time when in fact the black man was really considered a lesser being. Okay, that's part of what's going on here, and in fact part of what the story is doing is showing the white man's realization that the black man is not a lesser being. Okay, you'll see that in there, even though there are some terrible terms that are used in there and some terrible things that are done, and you can write about that stuff because that's all part of the local color. Okay, and a question for you for this week. In the story, for crying out loud, Battle Royal, which starts on 233, the main character's grandfather says something to the family, and in 3 words or less, tell me what you think that meant. Okay, it's pretty confusing, but in 3 sentences or less. 3 sentences or less. Email me at GeorgeC4 and tell me what that meant. So you have The Bride Comes to Yellow Sky on 254 and Battle Royal on 233. Okay, have a good week.